Welcome to Friends and Fiction. 4 New York Times bestselling authors, endless stories. Novelists Mary Kay Andrews, Kristin Harmel, Kristy Woodson Harvey, and Patti Callahan Henry are 4 longtime friends with more than 70 published books between them. Together, they host Friends and Fiction, with author interviews and fascinating insider talk about publishing and writing, to highlight and support independent bookstores. They discuss the books they've written, the books they're reading now, and the art of storytelling. If you love books and you're curious about the writing world, you're in the right place.
Hi, everybody. I'm coming to you live from my New York City hotel room. It's Wednesday night. It's time for Friends and Fiction, and we are really looking forward to tonight. We have a twofer, so let's get started.
You are.
Wait.
Your name.
Oh, I'm Mary Kay Andrews.
It's an auspicious beginning. I am Callahan Henry.
I'm Kristy Woodson Harvey.
I'm Kristin Harmel.
And I was going to say, and I'm Mary Kay Andrews, and this is Friends and Fiction. New York Times bestselling author.
Fresh.
Endless stories to support indie bookstores, authors, and librarians. Tonight, we are welcoming Laura Zigman and Elle Cosimano.
And we've also got an amazing surprise for you tonight later in the show, so don't budge. We are going to be doing a cover reveal of NKA's super secret upcoming Christmas book. We have already seen Mary Kay's cover because we're special like that. And I promise it is worth the wait. I can't wait for y'all to see it.
So exciting. In the meantime, don't forget, you know that we're always encouraging you to support those independent booksellers. And one way that you can do that is to visit our Friends and Fiction Bookshop.org page. You can find Laura's and Elle's books and books by the 4 of us and all of our guests at a discount.
And I know that we are not just live here on Wednesday nights on the show and on YouTube. We also have a podcast that comes out every Friday, and it is called Writer's Block. And if you aren't listening, you are missing out. We will always post links under the announcements every Friday when a new one drops. On our most recent episode, Ron and I talked to Armando Lucas Carrera about his novel, The Night Travelers. And then coming out this Friday, Meg and Ron interviewed Susan Stokes Chapman with her novel, Pandora. So listen, review, subscribe, all the things.
All right, ladies, let's introduce our first guest, Laura Zigman.
Yeah, Laura is the author of several novels, including Separation Anxiety, Dating Big Bird, and Piece of Work.
Her novel, Animal Husbandry, was made into a movie, Someone Like You, starring Hugh Jackman, boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And Ashley Judd. And she has also ghostwritten and collaborated on several works of nonfiction, including Eddie Izzard's New York Times bestseller, Believe Me.
Laura has been a contributor to the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the Huffington Post. Her new novel, Small World, was just released last week, and Elizabeth Egan in Sunday's New York Times Book Review called it a brave and heartfelt book of truths.
That's awesome.
Sean, can you bring Laura on? Hi, Laura.
Hi.
We are so thrilled to have you with us tonight. We know that Small World is about the Melishman sisters, newly divorced middle-aged sisters who move in together and try to make sense of all that was missing from their childhood. But there's so much more to this novel. Could you give us some clues about what the book is really about?
Yeah, first of all, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me. The book is about two, as you just gave an overview, 2 divorced middle-aged sisters, childless, who move in together for the first time since they were kids. I mean, since they were, college age. One sister lives in Cambridge and one sister lives on the West Coast. And it's the West Coast sister, Lydia, the older sister, who moves back to Boston after a really long time. And the younger sister, Joyce, suggests on the phone, hey, feel free to move in with me while you get your bearings. And she certainly didn't think that Lydia would stay for almost a year. But they move in together, and there's, so much humor to mine if you're a sibling, if you have a sister, especially if you have a sister, and I do. There's so much potential. There was so much potential humor to mine about what that would be like if you and your adult sibling lived together now. But then there was so much to mine in terms of the past, and so they had a very difficult childhood. They had a middle sister, Eleanor, who had been born with cerebral palsy and a severe seizure disorder, and she lived at home until she was 9, and then she was institutionalized when she was 10, and she died at 10. So they never quite talked about it very much. Their mother was very focused on Eleanor, and so they grew up kind of feeling on the margins of the family. So needless to say, they have a lot of issues.
Wow. That's what it's really about, a lot of issues.
Yeah. It was a fascinating book. But there is an autobiographical element to this story about families and loss and forgiveness, and of course, sisters, an element that you handle with such grace and frankness. So can you tell us, how difficult was it to write about, and how did your own sister react to this book?
It's a really good question. It was a topic that I wanted to write about my whole life. And I always felt like if I could write about it, even though this is fictionalized version of my actual family story, that I felt it was one of those stories that I wanted to tell because I felt like it would explain who I am in a really fundamental way. And it would also help me understand myself in a fundamental way. So I grew up in a family. I have a sister, Linda, who lives on the West Coast, and we had a sister who died when she was 7. And we didn't really know her because she didn't really live at home. She was institutionalized, she had bone disease. So it's different than in the book where, their sister is home. It's the 3 of them. It's their mom who's taking care, really focused on their sister who has a disability. So for us, it was very different. Everything happened in our family, happened sort of off stage to our parents. And then we kind of lived with the aftermath of that, which is grief. And so many people grow up in families like that for different reasons. So for me, it was something that I always wanted to write about and fictionalize. But it's a great question, how did my sister, I was very careful because we had always been very different but close, and she lived in California, since college. And we'd had, like most siblings, we'd had a little rough spot about 10 years ago, and we had made the peace, and we were in a really good place, and I treasured that. And the last thing I wanted to do was ruin it with anything. So, but I knew that I didn't want to write about the rough spot we'd had. I wanted to write about our childhood. So I did something that I don't normally do, which I've learned to do, which is just to be direct and normal. And I wrote to her and I said, this is what I want to do. I want to write this book about, and I want it to be about our childhood. And she sort of stopped me and she just said, I trust you, write your book. And that gave me so much freedom to know that whatever I was going to write about was going to be okay. And I wanted her to know that I wasn't going to go to the icky stuff, that wasn't going to do anything. I wasn't interested in that. I wanted to kind of write about our family in a lot of the scenes in the book are fictionalized, but the emotional pieces of it, the emotional truths, if you will, really come from our family. So it's very, it was as much as a book like that can be fun, it was fun because it took so much that was real, and then I was able to dramatize it in different ways.
It's so interesting because it does come across as very authentic. So I'm not surprised to find that, you did have this sort of similar experience of grief like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting too, to be able to take a piece of your past and work through it, but while consciously staying away from something that would have created more problems. I think that was just so well handled. Good for you. That's awesome.
I mean, it was easy in the sense that it was like what had happened was more recent, so I didn't have to even go there. But yeah, it was good.
Well, good for you for addressing it directly with
Yeah.
your sister too, rather than worrying about it the whole time, which would
Yeah.
have kind of overshadowed or cast a shadow on what you were trying to do with the book. That's amazing. Okay, so Laura, I am interested in the glue that sort of seems to bind this story together, which are the poems that Joyce creates from posts on her neighborhood listserv, which is kind of like
That was just
like next door.
so amazing. It was so amazing.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about this? Where did this come
I could talk to you
from?
about it all night. I could talk to you about it all night. In fact, all I want to do is talk to you about it. I have a friend on Facebook who is a professor, and he would occasionally post these incredible poems made from his listserv in Baltimore. And he would just take a post and cut it into a poem and post it on Facebook. And I was like, this is genius. I just want to eat these. And so I remember I wrote him and I said, I'm like a frustrated publishing person from age. I was like, there should be a book. Can you do it? He's like, well, I have a job. And clearly I didn't. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do something with these. And I told him that I was going to steal his idea. But basically I spent, we're all writers, so we all know the joy of procrastination. And when you can go down a rabbit hole like Nextdoor every single day and look for posts about lost cats, turkeys, bad neighbors, everything. So I had like little files and topics that I was really obsessed with, which is basically everything, because I get really obsessed with stuff like that. And when I was blocked, which is sort of all the time, I would just go, to research. And I would go on Nextdoor, and it was amazing. It was amazing. And I loved taking those posts and just cutting them into, and Small World is the fictional version of Nextdoor. So Small World is the site. And Joyce spent a lot of time on that site and making these little poems. And there's something very comforting to her, because she grew up in a family where there was this really big, sad thing happening. And when you go on Nextdoor, or when she goes on Small World, there are all these little problems. Where do I get the best pizza? Who's a good plumber? Where's my cat? And they're like, you get the answer, like a nice neighbor, there are helpers, and she feels very comforted by that. And it's also just a place that she escapes to, that she really likes to escape to.
I love that. Wow. That's fascinating.
And when I turned in the manuscript, I was all proud of myself, because all the poems were verbatim from Nextdoor. And then my editor was like, wow, I love the poems. They're so great. And then I said, yeah, they're absolutely verbatim from, and she blanched, and she was like, oh no, you can't do that. So I rewrote all of them and used maybe a line that was the inspiration for each one. Yeah.
Did you stick with like the same themes to each poem?
Like I would always, there was always something in each one that I picked that was so moving to me. I mean, some of them are really funny. I mean, they're, the avocados being stolen from Whole Foods.
I love the avocado.
Right. And then there's like really moving ones where people are, here from another country and no one says hello to them, and they're lonely. And there are a lot of people post on Nextdoor.
That's really sad.
They're sad, they're sad. They're lonely. These long kind of posts. So, so Joyce just loves being on Small World.
My Nextdoor, most of the Nextdoor posts in my neighborhood are about sightings of coyotes.
Wow.
Yes, that too. Yes, that too. Yes, super
Laura,
weird.
do you still spend a lot of time on Nextdoor, or have you? Yes. Okay.
Hilarious.
I still get the daily email. Several emails a day.
Away.
So I can't look away. And why would you?
Oh, see, I'm like delete.
I don't even know if we have that. I guess we do.
You do.
Yep.
Yeah. What? Now I need to join. I wonder how many people right now are like on their phone while they're watching, like going to subscribe.
Going to their Nextdoor.
Right. Exactly.
Don't join, because it's like a time stuff.
Sean just said this show is sponsored by Nextdoor.
Nextdoor, we're available.
The second half of the show will be sponsored by. But what I love is when there's something in our life, when we're stuck, and it can be a song lyric, it can be a poem, it can be Nextdoor, and it shifts a whole book.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm curious. I have something else I want to talk to you about, but I'm curious, did you ever think about making it a memoir? Like, did that cross your mind? Did you think about it? And if it did, what made you decide not to?
Yeah, that's a great question. For years and years, I assumed that I would try to write it as a memoir. And I even went away to one of those residencies, and I spent the whole time working on it as a memoir. And then I realized I didn't have enough of a story. We were just talking about Adrienne Brodeur's wonderful memoir, Wild Game, and I've just read an amazing memoir, which I hope to mention and my story just didn't have that kind of arc. It was like whatever happened in our family happened off stage, and it was kind of too quiet. There wasn't enough kind of story to it. And so I folded in the material that I had written, and changed it and used the essence of what I had written as material that I thought might be memoir material. It just wasn't. So this was such a great way to shift it, because it covered everything I wanted to cover. I got to research where my sister had lived here in outside Boston, and I was able to just like create things, and it was great, and use a lot of what I had written, because who wants to waste the stuff we write?
Nobody.
We want to use it, right?
Absolutely.
So it was I felt really good that I was able to use that stuff. Yeah.
So there was a 10-year gap, right? You talk freely about this, that there was this 10-year gap before you went back to fiction.
Yeah.
You could call it a crisis in confidence, writer's block. It's something we all go through. How did you work through that? I'm asking for a friend.
Aren't we all? Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was really abrupt. I had published my 4th novel, and the reviews weren't very good. The book just kind of died on the vine. And through, various, my agent wasn't that thrilled by that point. She was kind of like, maybe you should take a break. And I had a lot going on at home, and I just kind of was like, yeah, I'm not going to write for a while. And that just turned into a fear of writing, and just like a sort of a sick feeling about writing. And then I just had so much going on at home. We all know, like, you have to generate your own story. You have to come up with it. You have to sit down. And I couldn't do it. So years went by, and then I started to ghostwrite because I really had to earn a living. And that was a relief, even though I had no idea what I was doing. It was a relief because it was someone else's story. You sit down or you get on the phone with someone, and there's their story, and you have to problem solve in all the ways that we writers, voice and all that, and how to tell a story and how to structure it. But it was. I didn't have to make it up. I mean, kind of have to make it up a little, but you don't have to make it up. And so it was a relief, but I really missed fiction. I really missed it. And so I think, my last novel had been published in 2006, and I started to rent a therapist's office in Harvard Square by the hour, which sounds really creepy, but I couldn't afford an office, but I wanted to have like one day a week where I wasn't ghostwriting, and I wasn't, playing solitaire, where I would go to this shrink's office by the hour. I think I rented it Sunday afternoons and part of Monday. And I would just sit there. And some days I wrote and some days I didn't. But I had, in all the years that I was blocked, I did write a few things, but they just didn't go anywhere. Like, I wrote a script. I know you're like, oh, did you have writer's block or not? Well, sometimes I would try to write, and then I would nothing would happen. So I would feel really discouraged. It would get rejected everywhere. And then I'd be like, I'm not doing that again. But when I finally decided I want to give it one more try, I want to write one more novel, I used, and this is, one of those writer lessons. It's like, nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. The material, I have to get my power cord. I can't believe this. I know, isn't it crazy? Can you hear me?
No worries.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, we
I'm
can.
going to talk while you're doing
perfect.
that, because what you're saying is a little bit of what you talk about on your website, which is you call writing coaching or talk therapy, which is fascinating because you rented a therapist's office, but you call writing talk therapy. So Yeah.
I mean, what happened was I was able to use this stuff I had, worked on, but wasn't able to sell. And I started my novel, Separation Anxiety. And I thought, most of the people I know in publishing haven't retired yet. I have one last shot. And it took me about 4 years to write that novel. And I was so thrilled to have another chance to be published. And it was a thrill. And to tell a story I really wanted to tell, which was about middle age, about, how we are in middle age, and what, how sometimes we feel like it's all about loss, but it's not. And I just felt like I got this great do-over. And, on my website, I had this thing where I do some consulting, and I help other writers who are blocked And it's talk therapy. It's sort of like you can't talk to your shrink about it because what does a therapist really know about writing and publishing? But we all get blocked and we all feel a crisis of confidence. That was a perfect way of putting it at various times in our careers. And you can come at very late in your career. You can have 10 books, 15 books, 7 books, and you have no confidence and you're totally blocked and you can't write. And I understand that. And we think we all understand that. We've all faced that at different times. So start small, start really, really small when you have writer's block.
Oh, I like that a lot.
That's great advice.
So Laura, Mellishman luck, or the lack thereof, is a recurring refrain throughout this book. Their family is shattered after the loss of their disabled sister Eleanor, and yet somehow, no spoilers, you managed to offer us a glimmer of light or hope through this darkness. I was wondering the whole time I was reading the book, and at the end, I thought, what's she going to do at the end here? How's she going to do this? How did you arrive at this conclusion? And did you know it was possible to offer us this glimmer?
That's such a great question. I was writing this book and I called it like I finally got the plane in the air in terms of just sort of getting everything up. And I kept saying to my friend, Anne Leary, I was like, I have to land the plane now. I have to land the plane. I had no idea where it was going. Like, it's like the sisters are there and you've got the annoying people upstairs and you've got the sisters kind of arguing with each other about how to deal with the people upstairs and all that stuff is going on. And I had no idea, where it was going to go. But I just want to tell stories now that are like that have a real sense of a glimmer of hope at the end, where it's not necessarily the perfect ending. I mean, if you read the book, it's not necessarily a super happy ending, nothing like that. But it's, the sisters reach, real true connection and they know why they're there. They know why Lydia came home and they know why they're together. And they make a certain peace with their childhood. They understand it more. And I think those are the things now, at my age, those are the wins that maybe when you're 30 don't seem like wins, but they seem like that now. They seem really, really important now, especially after, the last few years, that those kinds of connections and that sense of connection. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that'll resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah.
So one more question for you, Laura. We know from your Q&A that you did in our newsletter that you decided to be a writer while you were a teenager. Was there one book that you read then that inspired you, that kind of pushed you on that journey? And also, what inspires you now?
Well, it's funny. I would say that I decided I would be a writer kind of because I couldn't do anything else. But I think when I read in high school, when I read Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner, I don't think I understood it. And I think if I tried to read it now, I still wouldn't understand it. I mean, I wasn't that smart. I couldn't, but I loved the language. I loved that it was just so wild and there were pages and pages without punctuation. I just was like, wow, I love this. And I also, like everyone here, I'm sure too, loved Joan Didion and was handed Slouching Toward Bethlehem, in high school. And I think that combination, I never had the confidence, or I wasn't raised with that kind of confidence to think like, I'm going to just come out and be a writer from college. I mean, I worked in publishing in New York for 10 years. I was a publicist and I wrote in my spare time and, such as it was. And I still felt like that was the only thing that I was really, that I loved and that I could do. So, yeah.
Well, that's awesome. What inspires you now? Or are there writers you read now that inspire you, or who inspire you, who kind of keep you along this path?
I live in Cambridge. I was a publicist for a long time. So when I stopped being a publicist a long time ago, even though I still think like one, I was not interested in having writer friends because that was my job. And I didn't want to really have why would I do that? And then I moved to Cambridge and all my friends now are writers. And one person I've gotten to be really good friends with, is Alice Hoffman. She lives in my neighborhood. And, that is someone who's so inspiring because she's always writing, always thinking, always coming up with stories and has had a career that's lasted this long. I mean, decades. It's incredible. I've been reading a lot of memoirs lately and that really inspires me too, besides the fiction. But I love it now. I feel like my writer's block is a little bit under control. I mean, I don't know how you guys think, but I don't think any of us ever feel like you sit down and, I always feel like I can't, I don't know how, wait,
Yeah.
I mean, you never feel like
Yeah.
you know exactly what you're doing because each book is different.
Yes.
And you have to solve for X
Yeah.
each time. Like, how am I going to get from here to there? But now I'm a little bit better at it. I can kind of like, I've done it twice now. I think of my career in two batches. So this batch, I think like I've done it twice. And so now I'm starting a new book and I'm like, it's okay. I have no idea, but I'll get there. So it's a different, yeah.
I wish you hadn't said solve for X, because that reminds me of algebra. And you know that meme you see online that says, name a book that made you cry? My algebra book.
Algebra.
I mean,
I apologize.
Traumatic memories. Yeah.
Helping Will with 5th grade math about pushes me over the edge at this point. I'm like, graphs, line, I mean,
stop.
5th grade, 3rd grade math. Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible.
There's a reason we work with words. So
it's true. It's true.
Laura, before you leave, will you tell the viewers where they can find you on social media and in person if you're touring?
Yes, I'm on Instagram, just my regular name, Laura Zigman. I'm on Twitter, Laura Zigman, and Facebook as well. All my regular name, no coded. And I am on a little tour. I did some appearances last week, and then I'm doing Wellesley Books soon on February 9th with Joanna Rakoff, who is one of my Cambridge buds. And there's a few more appearances on my website at laurazigman.com. So
I hope everybody will check.
I'm doing Warwick's virtual event with Mona Awad, my good friend and author of Bunny and All's Well. She and I are doing Warwick's virtually on Thursday night.
Oh, how fantastic.
Fun.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Laura, thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about Small World. We have just absolutely loved having you, and we hope that you'll visit us again soon.
I hope so.
Laura.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, everyone, don't worry. We're going to get to Mary Kay's cover reveal soon. And I should add that y'all will be the very first people to see it. Well, I mean, other than us, obviously. But first, let's talk all things Elle.
Elle Cosimano, which we all agreed on the pre-show is the coolest name. We all want to have a character named Elle Cosimano, is a USA Today bestselling author of both young adult and adult novels. The TV and film rights to Finlay Donovan is Killing It. It's such a great title, too.
I know.
It has been optioned by 20th Century Studios, 20th Television Studios, with Marlene King of Pretty Little Liars adapting the book.
In addition to writing novels, Elle's essays have appeared in the Huffington Post and Time. Elle lives with her husband and 2 sons in Virginia.
Her new novel, Finlay Donovan Jumps the Gun, also an amazing title, is set to be released on January 31st, but you can pre-order it now because January 31st is right around the corner. Sean, can you bring Elle on?
Hi, Elle.
Hi.
Hello, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Okay, Elle. Now, we know this book, the 3rd installment of the Finlay series involves Russian mob bosses, a citizens police academy, a simmering romance with a hot cop, a not quite potty trained 2-year-old, and an ex-husband who wants a do-over. But could you tell us what it's really about?
Yeah, for me, the Finlay Donovan series in itself is a story of kind of rediscovery and a woman who has an opportunity. She doesn't see it as an opportunity, but this whole series is kind of a series of events that create opportunities for her to find herself after a traumatic divorce. And so she's at the beginning of the series, we find her a newly divorced single mother of 2 small children whose life has been turned upside down. She's struggling in every aspect of her life. She's a struggling romantic suspense novelist who's got a terrible case of writer's block, and she's not making ends meet on her own. Of course, we have kids at a difficult age, one of them who has yet to potty train, that causes, its own set of complications in her life. She is kind of just trying to get back on her feet when her life sort of implodes. But what I love about this series is it's really about this woman who's finding herself again at a different stage of her life. And as women and mothers, we're constantly rediscovering and reinventing ourselves throughout our lives. And it was really fun for me to take this woman and watch her change and watch her struggle and watch her grow and watch her kind of redefine herself in her own terms, in her own life. And so for me, that's really the heart of this story. And of course, this story also has a fantastic unconditional female friendship at its heart. And I love exploring that relationship and its impact on both of these women and what they do for each other, what they bring for each other in this friendship, and what it means. And so for me,
Vero is literally her ride or die.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's they have such a great dynamic, and they're so much fun to write, and they inspire me, as I'm kind of, creating their story, and it's growing, and it's becoming so much more than it was in the beginning. They're really a found family now, and it's inspiring to watch them balance on each other and lean on each other and support each other in unexpected ways.
I feel like female friendship isn't written about nearly as much as it should be, because it's seriously what keeps us standing up sometimes. So
yeah, and it's a joy to be able to do it. Like I love exploring those positive relationships, and they have something that's so special and unique. They're so different. There's an age gap. They're at very different points in their life. They struggle with very different things. Personality wise, they're very, very different people, and yet they are the perfect counterbalance to each other, and they lift each other up in the most beautiful ways. And it's just fun. Shovels and grave digging aside, it's just fun to see all of the other exciting
you
ways.
Just made everybody want to read it. Shovel and grave.
Yes, grave digging.
Okay.
Yes, I had you at hello.
So Elle, I have to say your whole name, Elle Cosimano.
Please.
I want you to tell us about the riveting story of how you came up with the irrepressible Finley Donovan, and why you may or may not be banned from Panera Bread for life.
Yeah. So for those who maybe are new to the series, the story of Finley Donovan is killing it. The start of the series the action sort of kicks off in a Panera Bread when Finley is at a meeting with her literary agent. She's describing the plot of her very overdue romantic suspense novel, and is overheard by an eavesdropping woman at the table beside them. And the woman mistakes the conversation, totally misconstrues the conversation, and assumes that Finley is a killer for hire and attempts to hire Finley to deal with the woman's problem husband for an irresistible amount of money. And it poses real challenge, because here we have Finley in dire financial straits at the beginning of the story, struggling to hold on to her children. And so, of course, the question then becomes, what would you do for $50,000? And how horrible was this woman's husband? And all of the ethical questions that come into play. Well, about 4 years ago, I was actually in a very crowded Panera Bread with my beloved critique partners, Ashley Elston and Megan Miranda. And we were brainstorming the plot of a novel that I was working on. And it was a particularly violent scene that I was struggling with. The questions we were asking aloud in this very public setting were: who should die? How does it need to happen? Who cleans it up? like, these are things that we're actually like discussing, because when you're in a creative mode with other creatives, and sometimes you forget that other people aren't having these kinds of conversations in public settings. And it got a little out of hand. And before you know it, the woman at the table beside us, she just blanched. And she set down her tray and she got up and she left. And we were laughing because we thought, oh my gosh, what must she have thought? She must have come to the most horrible conclusions. And later that night, as we're talking over dinner, Ashley's cousin, we were joking and laughing over wine. And Ashley's cousin asked, she said, wouldn't it have been funny if she assumed you were a contract killer? And it was like this light bulb moment where, like, I still remember that moment with such startling clarity, because that was the moment that Finley Donovan, the whole premise, came to me.
Wow.
And that night in the elevator, we were on our way back to the hotel for the rest of our writing retreat, which we try to do like once a year. We were on our way back to our room, and in the hotel, I said to them, I said, I have this wild idea for a story, and I need one of you two to write it. And they said, oh, no, Elle, this is your book. You're going to write it. And I said, I can't write. Like, this is nothing like the books that I write. And they were the ones they were my Vero and my ride or die in that moment. And they said, no, you can totally do this. And so that night we put on our pajamas and we had the Twizzlers and the chocolate and the wine and the beer, and we started brainstorming. And before the end of the night, I had a rough character sketch and a very rough premise for the first in the series for Finley Donovan is Killing It.
That is amazing.
Way to go, writer pals.
This is really good to know. And I'm having this part of my book that I'm sort of really contemplating and mulling over right now. So if you guys could just all get together and we could sort of like hash this out.
Writers retreat.
And it is kind of the
We have done writers retreats. We've done 2.
Yeah, we are overdue.
We are.
I think in the next one we move to Disney, Kristin.
Oh yeah.
I'm in.
So Elle, you started your writing career writing YA, and in that category you've written thriller and horror. And so we'd love to hear how you made this leap over to writing women's fiction / rom-com / comic thrillers. We don't know how to categorize Finley because she's just all the things.
She's all the things.
In the best
way.
Love
that. That's my favorite thing about this series is it's such a genre bender, and it is all the things. And I think that's one thing I brought with me from my experience writing YA, because in the world of young adult, we don't see those genre lines painted quite so crisply. We have young adult shelves, and all the books, whether they're, dystopian or thrillers or romance or fantasy, are all kind of clumped together on the young adult shelf. Sure. And so we're not as restricted or boxed in, I think, by genre convention. And so almost all of my YA books were genre benders that would kind of blend different elements of different genre together. And so when I started writing Finley Donovan, I wasn't in the mindset of, I have to write this as a mystery with just following mystery convention. And because I wasn't thinking in those terms, I was just writing the book the way I felt like it needed to be written. And then, of course, came the struggle of, well, how do we sell it now? Because the adult market's very different, and there are genre shelves that tend to be a little bit more rigid. And of course, I wasn't thinking through those things at the time. And what turned out to be a struggle at the beginning for the series ended up, I think, being its biggest strength, because here we have this amazing book that is lots of different things, and it appeals to so many different kinds of readers, and that's one of the things that I love about it. And I think one of the things that a lot of people have enjoyed about it is it's not just one kind of book for one kind of reader. It has a little something for everyone. But I think that was one of the things I brought with me from writing those young adult books. In tone, they were so completely different. Like, they were not. Finley's comedy really is. They're funny. They're darkly funny books, but it was so different that it was so much more lighthearted, and it was very quick and kind of rompy and fun and so different in tone than the dark suspense and dark horror and dark fantasy that I'd been writing for 10 years before.
awesome.
That's a very great answer. I love that.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt or interject because we get live questions, and we have one from that I want to know, and it's from our pal Hank Philippa Ryan, whose new book comes out on. She's going to be a guest on our show on March 1st.
Have y'all gotten her the house guest package?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. Oh my gosh. And that cover.
It's amazing. Anyway, she has a question, and she wants to know how you feel about the hashtag book faces your fans have made of the cover. And I was wondering the same thing. So.
Oh, they're so much fun. The Finley fandom is wild, and one of the most joyous parts of writing this series for me. The readers are, they're so engaged, and they're so excited and so joyful, and they're very creative in their expressions of their love for the series. And we've seen the wildest things, especially Instagram. Instagram has kind of become Finley's home. Bookstagram has been the place where we see kind of most of the Finley fans sort of congregating and sharing their love. But they recreate the covers. We've seen entire scene recreations, and we're getting them from all over the world. I think the farthest one, I had a whole book club in Malawi that recreated a particular scene from the first book. We've seen libraries and book clubs doing the book face covers, where you kind of like make the cover fill in the rest of your body, and they're so much fun. And then of course we did the Finley Donovan chili cook-off to celebrate the third book, and we had lots of people post and share their recipes and their videos, and they just get so into it. It's amazing and inspiring and wonderful to see the way that fans have responded to the series in terms of almost wanting to participate and be part of this community of readers. And that to me is just, it's mind-blowing. It's wonderful.
So cool.
It's just wonderful.
That's great. So one of the many things that make Finley different from your run-of-the-mill fictional sleuth is that she's the single parent of 2 small kids. Tell us how you make those 2 colliding worlds believable. And are your readers convinced that you are Finley, that you are doing the crazy, you're moving headstones in the middle of the night and climbing down blankets out of a police academy? Does everybody think, oh, that's Elle, she does that?
Elle Cosimano, not just Elle.
Elle
all the time. Yeah. On any given Thursday night, you can find me climbing out of a police academy window. But it's funny because I do tell people that Finley's voice is very much my voice. Like we hear, I think the biggest piece of feedback that I get is that Finley rings very relatable and very real. And I think that's because her voice is so deeply rooted in the elements that connect us. So it's my real voice as a mom. It's my real voice as a struggling writer most days, because we've all been through, the writer's block, and when a book isn't selling very well and all of these things that she struggles with. And just womanhood in general, I think, but those parts of my voice and Finley's voice we share. And so I think, Finley and Vero go on some pretty wild adventures, and they pull off some pretty ridiculous shenanigans in these books, very murdery shenanigans. Murdery shenanigans. But I think what makes it possible to ask the readers to go on those adventures with her is because I hope I've anchored them, I've rooted them in a very real voice and a character who feels authentic and real on the page. And so, yes, she struggles with diapers, and yes, she struggles with kids giving themselves haircuts in the morning right before you're supposed to be leaving for an important work meeting. And what to do when the babysitter doesn't show up and you have places to be and people to bury. And there are all of these, normal everyday struggles that are fun to tangle up with some of the more ridiculous struggles and situations that Finley finds herself in. And what I found is that when I can braid those two together, it creates this amazing magic where readers are willing to suspend disbelief and go along for this amazing, fun, hilarious ride with Finley and Vero doing these ridiculous things and solving these incredible mysteries, because they're riding along in a car that feels very real, so to speak.
Ooh, I love that. So that's so well put. That's awesome.
It's a minivan, by the way.
It's a minivan. There's
That's what I love. She's not
crackers and Cheerios.
Yeah, she's not driving a Ferrari or a Tesla.
Yeah.
She's driving a mom van.
She's driving a mom van, and she's got mom places to be, and yeah, it's great. I love it. And I love, as a mother, it's really fun to see the mom get to be the heroine of the story.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love giving her those moments to shine. She struggles, but she also shines. So
don't we all, right? That's what being a mom is all about.
That's right.
So I almost called you Finley. Oh my God. You have merged in my head. Elle, you went from a successful career in real estate to writing. So we would love to hear how you gained the courage to jump feet first into fiction. And we also hear that your mom plays a role in your ability to do what you do. Yes,
absolutely. My mom gave me the courage and the kick in the butt.
Awesome.
She's pretty incredible. I had joked off the cuff for years, that I wasn't going to have a midlife crisis and buy a hot car or get a young boyfriend or do any of these kind of cliche things we do in our midlife crisis. That my midlife crisis was going to be, I was going to quit my job and write a novel. And I had joked for so long, and I guess moms, in the way that moms just know, had intuited, and she knew that she saw a kernel of something there in that joke that rang true. And so I was getting to a point where I was very good at my job. I did real estate for a really long time. I was very good at it. And I was feeling very unfulfilled, and I was struggling. My kids were at elementary school is a tough age. And I was kind of at this weird place in my life where I could kind of feel like I was on the cusp of that crisis. Like, who am I? And I just didn't know. And she said, why don't you bring the kids to me for the summer and stay here and let me watch them, and you write a book.
Wow.
And I said, no, but who does that? I said, that would be the most selfish, irresponsible thing I could ever imagine doing. I said, I can't do that. Like, at the time I was the breadwinner for the family, and it felt like it would be so selfish a decision to make. And she said, just think about it. Wow. And I went home and I did think about it, and then I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then that was all I could think about. And so I ended up taking a 2-month sabbatical that summer. I brought the kids down and we stayed with my parents. My mom took my kids every day at 8:00 in the morning and brought them back from the pool and the beach and all the places she took them at 5:00. And she cast me upstairs into this dark little chamber upstairs. And she's like, every day, she's like, you bring me a chapter at the end of the day. And at 5:00, when she brought my kids home, exhausted and fed and ready for the night, she would wait at the bottom of the stairs for my chapter. And she would read each chapter as I read or as I wrote. And at the end of by the end of the summer, I had a complete manuscript. It was a very horrible, awful first draft, but I had the first draft of my first novel.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What a mom. That's amazing.
What a mom. She's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
I have to know. That's amazing.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And I'm very fortunate. Like, I know, like, I'm very lucky to have that kind of support. A lot of people don't. I had a very supportive spouse who, like, at every turn was like, if this is what you want to do, like, we'll find a way to do it. And so I had support from a lot of different places. I think that's probably the only thing that gave me the courage and physically the ability to do it, the time and the space that I needed to do it.
So
That's
great.
amazing. And now you write about a mom who like changes, who like
Yeah,
who's forging her
yeah.
own path. I love it. It's like a mom to mom moments.
Yeah. Chill bumps.
Yes.
It's a magical circle.
Yeah.
Okay, Elle, before we let you go, we want to know what kind of books are on your to be read stack. And are there any there that would surprise us?
I don't know. Like, in terms of the surprise, I read the same way that I write across all genre. Like, I mean, like I hop around. I don't necessarily read in one vein, and I love that. I think we learn a lot as writers when we read across genre lines too. But it also keeps things interesting. So everything that's on my TBR is always really, really different. My TBR tends to be books that have not yet come out, that are kind of way out in the future, because I get a lot of requests to read early. But I can give you a few of the ones I'm super excited about. In frothy, rompy, fun, murdery books, kind of along the veins of Finley Donovan, I'm really excited about Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers by Jessie Q. Tanto. It's so fun. And so I just finished that one, and it had so much heart. It had so much heart. It was really a great, great story. In dark thrillers that explore motherhood and womanhood and all the things that come with that, keep your eyes open for Cutting Teeth by Chandler Baker. It's dark, and it's so incisive. And I was so impressed with this book. I mean, it just, as a mother, just like I've never felt so seen. It was just unbelievable. In romance, I'm a huge fan of Christina Lauren, and the True Love Experiment coming. I can't wait. So that's on my wish list of books to read for me. And I'm really excited about Megan Miranda's new one coming out, The Only Survivors, which is coming very soon. So also on my TBR. And one last one that is so fun if you love stories of female friendship and exploring like cross-generational friendships, Smitten, with the mostly true story of Tanner and Louise by Callahan.
Oh yeah,
we love Colleen.
So wonderful. It was the best story. I felt so hard for those characters. I talk about them at every turn. They're wonderful.
So
that's
original, yeah, very original and unique, as Colleen's books are. And Colleen's going to be on the show.
Yay.
Yeah. And I blurbed that book, so I'm glad we share the same taste, Elle.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Elle, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This was such a pleasure. Can you tell our viewers where they can find you on social media and maybe out on the road? I don't know if you're going on an in-person tour or anything.
I am. I have a massive tour coming up. I'm getting ready to leave town very soon. We've got stops everywhere. I'll be on the road for a really long time. So the best way to check is all my social media. You'll see my tour schedule. But I know I've got stops in Florida, South Carolina, Texas, California, Missouri, Virginia, and DC. So we'll be like all over for a little bit. Social media, you can find me everywhere under Elle Cosimano. Instagram is a great place to find me. We have a lot of Finley fun at Instagram. So there are always Finley shenanigans going on over there. Facebook is a great place to find me. And I also have a Twitter account. So all of them under Elle Cosimano.
That's great.
Great.
Thanks, Elle. It's great to see you tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
You're such a joy.
Thank
you.
Thanks, Elle.
Okay, you guys, that was fun, wasn't it? Two very different kinds of books that we know that you're going to love. All right, so as promised, here at long last is the cover of my super secret upcoming Christmas novella. Sean?
Oh, beautiful.
Yes. So
I have to point out, you have to point out all the hidden things in there because it's so beautiful.
Well, thanks. So Bright Lights, Big Christmas is going to be out in the world September 26th, which is my little sister Patty's birthday.
Oh, Patty.
Yeah, my little baby sister Patty, who's
Her real sister, not me. Her real sister.
I know, but I know her real sister Patty, so I can say, "Oh, Patty," right?
yeah, we've all spent time with my baby sister Patty.
That's right.
Yep.
We have.
So Bright Lights, Big Christmas will be out in the world September 26th. It's the story of Carrie Tolliver, who travels from her family's Christmas tree farm in the mountains of North Carolina. Now, it's the same town that the Santa suit was set in, but this is a whole new set of characters. She travels with her brother from the mountains of North Carolina to the streets of Greenwich Village, where she'll live in a vintage camper. So you see that little vintage camper. It's a 15-foot vintage Shasta camper. She lives with her brother for a month, and she sells Christmas trees and tries to make sense of her life. And also, while she's doing that, maybe find a new love and a new career. So there it is. And so you can see the lights. You can see the name of the camper is Spammy because it looks like a canned ham. Spam. And you can see the Christmas tree strapped on top. And I'm so thrilled with this cover. So I don't want much from y'all. I just need you all to hit that pre-order button. Buy my book, damn it. To make sure you get your copy of Bright Lights, Big Christmas on Pub Day. And if you do that, I will love you all more than chocolate and Diet Coke and Vintage Christmas.
It's compelling.
And it is a part of our box too.
It
is.
Part of
That's
our
right.
with Booktown. So
That's another way to pre-order. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love looking at the cover. It has
great.
if somebody's watching it on a smaller screen, it has the background of New York, like completely
Right.
at a point.
Right.
And then it's just such a beautiful and darling cover. Yeah.
It's perfect.
cover.
Yeah.
It's really great. Okay. So between the four of us and our guests, your reading calendar for 2023 set, swished in. So all four of us have novels coming out this year, and we are going to be together beyond these four squares in real life with each other for at least 5, we might add some more, Friends in Fiction live events. It all starts on April 26th in Columbus, Ohio. And then next up is May for the Friends in Fiction launch event for The Secret Book of Flora Lee on May 1st. And if you want to start buying tickets now, actually, y'all, the VIP part's already sold out. So if you want to get in, you need to hurry up and buy your tickets, because then we have 3 more live events. 1 in June for Kristin's launch of The Paris Daughter, 1 in July for Kristy's launch of Summer of Songbirds, and then in September for Mary Kay's on her sister's birthday, Bright Lights, Big Christmas. In fact, Kristin, I think you have something to tell us about your launch party.
Yeah, you guys have been asking. I'm so sorry it's taken me so long to be able to tell you all, but I am finally able to share this with you on Tuesday, June 6th, the day The Paris Daughter comes out. The Friends in Fiction event that you can come to that'll feature all 4 of us will be at the Thurber Arts Center in Huntsville, Alabama, with independent bookstore. Yeah, we're so excited, with independent bookstore Snail on the Wall, and in conjunction with the Huntsville Library Foundation. So they don't have a ticketing link yet, but you can find out more at this link that Sean just put on the screen, snailonthewall.com/event/friends-fiction. So we will let you know as soon as the tickets go on sale, but we hope you will mark your calendars for June 6th in Huntsville, Alabama, when the 4 of us will all be together, and we can't wait to see you. Oh, and also, speaking of, I forgot I had more to say. Speaking of that, while we are talking about fun book things for all 4 of us, just a reminder that our new Friends in Fiction first edition subscription is available from the indie bookstore Booktown in Manasquan, New Jersey. And of course, it features signed first editions of each one of our 2023 hardcover releases, and that fabulous Friends in Fiction kitchen towel that says, dinner can wait. It's time for Friends and Fiction. So you can order that box right now at booktown.com. Of course, that's Booktown with an E at the end. It is the best way to guarantee signed first edition books from all four of us.
Yes. And you will not want to forget about our Friends and Fiction official book club with Brenda and Lisa. They host monthly author chats and have regular happy hours with our Writer's Block podcast host, Ron Block. I stumble over that every time I have to say it. And they keep everyone in the loop about suggested reads and upcoming releases. Join them on January 23rd when Zibby Owens will be on to discuss bookends. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for being with us.
Yes. And don't forget, you can find all of our back episodes on YouTube. We're there live every week, just like we are on Facebook. And if you subscribe, you won't miss a thing. Okay, everybody, that's it for us tonight. Next Wednesday, tune in when we're going to be joined by Marie Benedict, who I just saw last night. You guys are not going to want to miss hearing her talk about the Mitford affair. So join us and Eleanor Shearer for the after show. Have a great night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in. You can join us every week on Facebook or YouTube, where our live show airs on Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram. We're so glad you're here.